In our headlines on this Wednesday, October 30th, here on the Korean Peninsula. A small contingent of North Korean soldiers has already been stationed within Ukrainian territory, according to an American media report, to support Russia's military offensive there. Meanwhile, the U.S. presidential election is now less than a week away, and all eyes are on the result of this race given its implications on the future course of Washington's partnerships with its allies, including South Korea. And speaking of South Korea, with autumn in the air, a number of national parks are gathering crowds given their scenic sights of the season's colors. A compact contingent of North Korean troops is reportedly already inside Ukrainian territory. Arirang starts us off.
A CNN report published Tuesday U.S. local time cited two Western intelligence officials who claimed that a small unit of North Korean troops is already in Ukraine. The officials expect the number to increase as North Korean military forces finish training in eastern Russia and move toward the front lines of the conflict. This information goes beyond confirmation provided earlier by the U.S. government.
As we highlighted earlier this week, we believe that the DPRK has sent approximately 10,000 soldiers in total. A portion of those soldiers have already moved closer to Ukraine towards Russia's Kursk Oblast near the border with Ukraine, approximately a couple thousand, with a smaller number already present in the Kursk region.
While the U.S. government said it does not have information to address reports of North Korean forces in Ukraine, it expressed concerns about potential developments and noted that it is closely monitoring the situation.
We are concerned that they do intend to employ these forces in combat against the Ukrainians, or at least support combat operations against the Ukrainians in the Kursk region.
This follows an earlier claim by the Lithuanian NGO Blue Yellow, which has been assisting Ukraine's military, that the first encounter between Ukrainian troops and North Korean military forces occurred on October 25th in Russia's Kursk region, leading to the death of all but one North Korean. U.S. President Joe Biden on Tuesday also expressed concerns about the presence of North Korean troops in Russia, stating that if they cross into Ukraine, Ukraine should respond with force. On the same day, State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller criticized Russia and North Korea, stating that the deployment of North Korean troops marks a significant escalation in the DPRK's ongoing involvement in Russia's illegal actions and another breach of UN Security Council resolutions. Heung-min, Arirang News.
South Korea's support for Ukraine will remain unaffected by the result of the U.S. presidential race. Remarks to this end were shared by the top office on this Wednesday in response to questions by the press pool here about the possibility of a shift in stance by Seoul in the event of former President Donald Trump returning to the White House. The Yongsan presidential office has vowed unwavering support for Kyiv as the stance is in line with Seoul's own interests. Separately, a special Ukrainian envoy to South Korea is expected to arrive soon, assigned with the task of strategic bilateral partnership in light of North Korea's troop involvement in Russia's war against Ukraine. And North Korean troop presence on the front lines of Russian aggression against Ukraine has Western leaders sharing their concern about the future course of the Kremlin's military offensive in Eastern Europe. Our Heung-min has more.
On Tuesday, NATO's new Secretary General Mark Rutte met with EU President von der Leyen, during which they discussed the war in Ukraine and called it the biggest threat to peace and security on the continent. And for the first time, NATO confirmed the deployment of North Korean troops to Russia and their operation in the Kursk border region. Rutte said the confirmation was based on weeks of intelligence reports and a meeting with South Korean security and defense officials on Monday. He added that the recent deployment of North Korean troops to support Russia posed a serious threat, which represented a significant escalation and a dangerous expansion of Russia's war in Ukraine. And world leaders are voicing their concerns over the situation. After a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing, Finnish President Alexander Stubb said in a press conference that North Korean activity, both in terms of arms exports and especially the sending of troops to Russia, was escalation, expansion, and provocation.
My own analysis is, this is my analysis, not the words of the president, is that for China, the Chinese-North Korea relationship is not very comfortable at the moment. because as a matter of fact, it can lead to escalation.
On Tuesday, the Pentagon also confirmed that of some 10,000 North Korean troops sent to train in eastern Russia, a portion of them have already moved closer to the Kursk region. Spokesperson Major General Patrick Ryder said that there was still no information on how the North Korean troops will be used in operations against Ukraine or if they have crossed the border yet. Meanwhile, as Western leaders continue to express concerns over any movement threatening escalation, the Kremlin released a video on Tuesday in which Russian President Vladimir Putin announced a new strategic nuclear training exercise.
Today, we are conducting another exercise of strategic deterrence forces. We will work out the actions of officials in controlling the use of nuclear weapons with practical launches of ballistic and cruise missiles.
Putin added that Russia would stick to its principled position of using nuclear weapons as a last resort in ensuring the security of its country, and that it was not looking to be involved in a new arms race. But Putin also emphasized the importance of having modern and constantly ready-to-use strategic forces, and that it would maintain nuclear forces at the level of necessary sufficiency. Lee Eun-jin, Arirang News.
And against the backdrop of heightened tensions on the war front in Ukraine, top defense officials of Seoul and Washington are scheduled to sit down at the Pentagon on Wednesday local time for their annual security talks. Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun and his U.S. counterpart Lloyd Austin will be holding the 56th Security Consultative Meeting, their first in-person exchange since Minister Kim took office last month. Topping the agenda this year, many believe, will be North Korea's troop transfer to Russia. Meanwhile, the two defense officials will then join their diplomatic counterparts on Thursday for their 2+2 meeting, the first in about 3 years. We are now counting down less than a week to the U.S. presidential election, whose result will have implications that go beyond its borders to affect the future course of its partnership with allies, including South Korea. That being said, our political correspondent Ishi-Hu covers the potential scenario for South Korea, depending on the next U.S. leadership.
It's an exceptionally close race to the White House, with the latest polls showing Harris and Trump neck and neck in many states. But what now for South Korea, one of the U.S. key allies, working closely together in trade and diplomacy? Experts in trade and foreign policy suggest uncertainties under Trump and a continuation of Biden's policies under Harris.
In the case of Trump, regardless of whether it's isolationism or nationalism, it's a form of national priority that doesn't really consider the alliance. So Trump may impose high tariffs on all cars. South Korea and the other allies cooperate in the battery supply chain, and we can sell the US, for example, our positive electoral materials we produce, but Trump may not really keep in consideration this kind of alliance.
While Trump's policy is probably applicable regardless of sectors, Harris and the Democrats will likely focus on a few selected areas for cooperation.
Well, Harris and the Democrats value the alliance, and we are an ally of the US. Although the US emphasizes domestic production in certain sectors for national profit, the US does cooperate in other sectors when it's needed.
When it comes to the security alliance and defense costs, which Trump in his campaign has repeatedly called for South Korea's greater financial input, the Korea Institute for Industrial Economics and Trade predicts South Korea could expect not only an increase in defense costs, but also less cooperation in defense and weapons technologies. A policy expert, too, says there may be a big demand.
We will obviously expect a massive crisis in cost-sharing negotiations. President Trump has been very clear that he does not think the current arrangement is satisfactory. On the campaign trail, he's talked about $5 billion, even $10 billion in terms of special measures agreement renegotiations. So there's going to be a very big demand coming.
As for the foreign policies on the Korean peninsula,
so I think we're going to expect to see that further continue under a Harris administration. But I think they're really going to be working towards how to optimize the ROK-US alliance to deal with this unprecedented challenge by North Korea in Russia and their collaboration.
There may also be more multilateral partnerships with other U.S. allies, including Australia and Canada. Experts suggest that the key to making this coming change an opportunity for South Korea is to create areas where Korea is irreplaceable, for example, in technologies or products that South Korea leads globally. South Korea could use this kind of strength to make it hard for any administration to impose restrictions, but instead encourage investment in the country, further affecting diplomatic relations. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, speculation of a potential return to the White House by Republican nominee Donald Trump has prices of Bitcoin soaring, while the controversial remarks by his supporters at his New York rally continue to cause ripple effects. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
Former President and Republican candidate Donald Trump has previously stated that he would support cryptocurrency, going as far as to say that the government under his administration would hold Bitcoin. And as the prospects of his return to the Oval Office increased, so has the price of Bitcoin. Bitcoin surpassed the $70,000 mark for the first time in about 4 months on Tuesday and closed in on the all-time high of $73,800 before falling back to the $72,000 range. Dogecoin, which has been long promoted by Tesla CEO and Trump supporter Elon Musk, also saw its price jump. With little room for error and controversy that might prevent Trump from returning to the White House, the Trump camp has distanced itself from comedian Tony Hinchcliffe, who was one of the openers for the Republican candidate's rally in New York City's Madison Square Garden on Sunday. The comedian referred to Puerto Rico as a floating island of garbage, drawing massive criticism from Democrats and some Republicans as well. According to Trump campaign senior advisor Daniela Alvarez, the statement by Hinchcliffe does not reflect the views of Trump or the campaign. Trump has also seen a number of Republicans refusing to support him in his re-election bid. The daughter of former Republican President George W. Bush has now openly expressed her intent to support Democrat Kamala Harris. Barbara Pierce Bush joined the Harris campaign over the weekend in Pennsylvania in support for the Democratic candidate. Her endorsement comes as her parents have expressed no intention of endorsing either of the presidential candidates this year. Meanwhile, with former White House Chief of Staff John Kelly telling various media outlets that Trump had praised Hitler and Nazi Germany during his time as president, Trump's wife and former First Lady Melania Trump has come to defend her husband, saying he is not Hitler. Speaking to Fox and Friends on Tuesday, Melania pushed back against criticism of the former president. When asked why her husband is running for president again, she said he loves his country and the people and wants to make the U.S. great again. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
In other news, South Korea's relationship with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations dates back 75 years. And in light of this occasion, our An Sun-jing takes a closer look at their ties over those years.
From recipient to donor, South Korea's relationship with the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations has changed dramatically over the past 75 years. The country is now one of the FAO's major donors, contributing to food security and sustainability for developing countries. The two have fostered a mutually beneficial partnership to achieve mutual growth and innovation for agricultural development.
FAO will continue to work closely with its members, particularly the government and the people of the Republic of Korea, for more efficient, resilient, inclusive, and sustainable agri-food system.
The FAO specializes in efforts to tackle hunger and achieve food security so people have regular access to sufficient high-quality food. South Korea has funded multiple FAO projects that work towards strengthening that capacity for developing countries. This program officer in charge of the Green Jobs for Rural Youth Employment Project, an ROK-funded FAO project which has been implemented by Zimbabwe, Sierra Leone, and Timor-Leste, says that sustainability as well as implementing partners and international cooperation play a key role in facilitating these initiatives.
In order for things to be successful, we've really had to work with local governments. It's incredibly important for them to buy in and support projects, but it's really local government in local communities and districts who are on the ground making the action work.
The FAO emphasizes policy making, capacity building, and technological development as ways to bring economic advances and agricultural progress to countries in need. An Song-jin, Arirang News.
Up next, Korea boasts some of the most scenic sites of autumn hues, and our Park Won-woo shares with us a number of such sites. Do take a look.
Autumn's vibrant colors invite you to the breathtaking scenery. At this time of year, people usually visit mountains and parks to see fall foliage turning red, yellow, and more. Whereas leaves change colors and usually reach their peak from mid to late October, there's a different situation this year, and it's due to climate change.
Fall foliage color changing is at least 2 to 3 days later on average. Summer was longer than before, and the temperature rose by around 1.3 degrees Celsius compared to the average of the past decades.
The same expert also said that leaves could fall earlier than expected due to strong winds and colder weather down the road. Still, there are many options nationwide to enjoy fall foliage, as the peak season for major mountains is several days later compared to the earlier forecast by the Korea Forest Service. The organization says that only 20% of the leaves on Naejangsan Mountain, for example, in the south of the country, had changed colors by last week. Since the organization sets the peak season as when at least 50% of the foliage changes its colors, it's estimated it could be early November or even a bit later. I'm currently at Yeonsan Mountain Provincial Park located in Gapyeong-gun County in Gyeonggi-do Province northeast of Seoul, where you can enjoy an amazing view of fall foliage. This place is a very peaceful place where you can enjoy birds chirping along with the sound of the water from the valley, and there's also a fresh breeze. Many visitors also visited this area that's been chosen as one of the 5 best forest paths for leaf peeping this year by the KFS.
A few days ago, I visited a different mountain because I heard that place had reached peak season, but it hadn't. But this place was really nice with a lot of maple trees, so it made me lose track of time.
This year, the autumn leaves are late, so people said it's not that pretty. But this place is good because it's close to the city and was so beautiful from the entrance.
And as the southern part of the peninsula usually reaches its peak later than the upper areas, planning in advance is recommended to enjoy a vibrant autumn. Park Won-woo, Arirang News, Gapyeong.
And starting November 1st, that would be this coming Friday, entrance will be restricted to Bukchon Hanok village in Seoul's Jongno-gu district. The restriction comes in line with efforts to ease the repercussions of over-tourism. Accordingly, from 5 in the evening to 10 in the morning, the area from Bukchon-no and Bukchon-no Ogil to Changdeok-gung Ilgil will be off limits to tourists. This means tourists will be allowed to access the area over a time frame of 7 hours between 10 in the morning until 5 in the evening. The area will be divided into red, yellow and orange zones depending on the level of discomfort to residents in the area. Come next March, those caught violating the restriction will be fined, but guests at accommodations in the area as well as patrons to shops will be exempt. On the football field, Team Korea's captain Son Heung-min has been named the Asian International Player of the Year by the Asian Football Confederation. The award ceremony took place at Kyunghee University here in Seoul on Tuesday, but Son was not able to attend. He is also the captain of English Premier League club, the Tottenham Hotspur, and has won the award 3 times before in the years 2015, 2017 and 2019. The award is granted to the top Asian player who plays outside the continent. No other player has won the award more than once.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. Gaza officials on Tuesday said that at least 109 Palestinians, including children, were killed by an Israeli airstrike overnight, which destroyed a 5-story residential building in Beit Lahia in northern Gaza. U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said on Tuesday that the U.S. was deeply concerned by the loss of civilian life and that the report of at least 25 children killed in the attack was a horrifying result. Miller added that the latest Israeli airstrike is another reminder of why we need to see an end to this war. The Israeli Defense Forces said that it was aware of reports that civilians were harmed. Meanwhile, in Lebanon, Hezbollah named Naim Qassem as its new leader on Tuesday as a successor to Hassan Nasrallah, who was assassinated by Israel in September. Qassem has previously said the Iran-backed militant group was ready for a long battle against Israel. Argentine state employees, led by the Association of State Workers, began a 36-hour strike on Tuesday to protest against layoffs, low wages and budget cuts by President Javier Milei's new government. The Association of State Workers, or ATE, which is Argentina's largest union of public employees, called for the protest, which began with a march from the obelisk of Buenos Aires in the country's capital to the Ministry of Deregulation and State Transformation. The group announced that the strike will include air, rail and subway workers in Buenos Aires beginning midnight Wednesday, while bus drivers will also join the protest from Thursday. The ATE is demanding that Milei's government prevent the state from being taken over by large business groups. Spanish footballer Rodri, who plays as a midfielder for Manchester City, has won the 2024 Men's Ballon d'Or, an award given to the best football player in the world. 28-year-old Rodrigo Hernandez Cascante, who goes by Rodri, won his first Ballon d'Or on Monday, local time. The women's award went again to Aitana Bonmati, who held up her second consecutive Ballon d'Or Féminin. Rodri saw his team win a fourth straight Premier League trophy last season and was named the best player at the UEFA European Championship this year, where Spain won the competition. Brazilian Vinicius Jr., who plays for Real Madrid, was runner-up, and his Real teammate Jude Bellingham came third. Moving over to New York City's Times Square, where new installations have been made in preparation for the annual Day of the Dead celebrations. 3 large colorful statues were set up in one of the busiest areas of Manhattan to represent Dia de los Muertos, a Mexican holiday where it is believed that the dead come back to Earth to visit their loved ones. The Day of the Dead is traditionally celebrated over 2 days, November 1st to honor the passing of children and November 2nd to remember the adults. Kim Xiang, Arirang News.
Today, with clear skies continuing throughout the day, the whole country was mild with temperatures above 20 degrees Celsius. However, with smoke from overseas, the concentration of ultrafine dust in the Seoul metropolitan area in Chungcheong-namdo province will rise to bad levels overnight. The dust will gradually clear up from tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow, the daytime temperature in Seoul will rise to 22 degrees, but as the daily temperature ranges more than 10 degrees, you should take a warm jacket with you on your way out. Tomorrow, Chuncheon will start off at 9 degrees, Daejeon, Daegu, and Gyeongju 10 degrees. Daily highs will move up to at least 20 degrees all over the country. It will rain in Jeju and the southern parts of the country on Friday, and in Gangwon-do province on Saturday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Thank you for watching.